In 2017, I ran for a political seat. You wouldn't have told me that I'll fail. There are times when I have gone through horrible failure, but I have learned the art of, when you're talking to a businessman who is so charged up, he sleeps in the whole night, he can count shillings and notes and money. He's seeing customers, he's dreaming about building mansions, he's dreaming about selling. And you're telling this gentleman, my friend, one day you may wake up and there are no customers. It's like telling two people who are in love that this love may not work in the next 2, 3, 4 months if you're not very careful. It's like I was seeing and my eyes just shut. It's like a rose flower was plucked from my hand. I had a beautiful rose. It was plucked from my hand. It's like I'd lost a parent. It's like I'd lost a child, I'd lost a wife. I have never gone through excruciating pain like I did that time. It would have killed me. I would have been totally maimed. My emotions were unable at that particular time to carry that failure.
It was a serious failure.
Horrible failure.
It was you fell with a loud thud.
And it was a huge thunder. And the worst thing about failure, which I'd like us to just look at it, in fact, one of the things that makes failure more painful is that your contemporaries, your peers, your friends, and people who are close to you never want to identify with failure. And so failure stinks. The moment you fail, you smell, you stink. You get me? And nobody likes a stench. Nobody likes that smell. And those guys around you vanish. And so you're left alone. That's the worst part of failure.
Mm. The add-ons.
Absolutely. The support system when you fail
breaks down.
Now, how do you navigate out of failure without any support system? And that's the strength of a businessman.
If I had 1 million shillings today, I am fired up. I have an idea that I want to invest in. What things can I do to minimize my chances? Failure will come, definitely, and I might learn or from it or not. But then, what are some of the things that I can do to minimize the level to which I will fail, or the frequency to which I will fail, or delay it a bit? What are some of the things in your experience in the business?
You grow progressively. I think that's, I'm trying to look at your context of investment. You have 1 million shillings and you want to invest in a business. If I was going to invest the entire 1 million shillings and I lose the entire 1 million shillings, then the depth of failure will be great. If I want to minimize the pain, then maybe I invest progressively, meaning I don't have to invest 1 million shillings. I have to start in bits so that I measure. There's an African saying that you don't measure the depth of a river with 2 legs. Mm-hmm. Measure with 1. So that's the principle. Try 1 and see, is it possible, before you invest more. Do you get me? Otherwise, when you go and put the entire 1 million shillings and you fail, then that becomes very devastating. I think that's the way I would want to advise anybody who wants to mitigate against failure, that you need to be very, you need to invest progressively. But then There are times when you cannot invest progressively. You need to put the entire money on the market. I need to be confident enough, courageous enough to confront or to have discussions about what about if it doesn't work. Those are discussions that should be there. I say it sometimes, we are so much caught up with this love that discussing that becomes a problem. But then I think moving forward, one of the things that we need to discuss is what are the chances of our success? You get me? We need to discuss the risks and really tear down, break those completely so that we understand we are getting into a risky environment. In case anything happens, we are prepared for it. Otherwise, we shouldn't just get into business with, the kind of love I've said, where, I have been there, where you get in and you've not had time to, to process the risks. Then when it hits you with thunder. And so I think when you sit down and discuss risks, I'm getting into this business, anything can happen, but then I'm prepared in case it happens. There are people who have partnered, some of the, either 2 or 3 or 4, some have processed the risks, some haven't processed the risks.
Within the partnership?
Yes. The moment it fails, the partnership breaks because some people never anticipated the risk. So within your partnership, within your business, a partnership, you should be able to discuss and agree. We're getting into this. We're going for a war. Business is like going for war. We can either get it or lose it. You get me? One time in this hotel, I remember a guy had just bought a vehicle. He had brought it all the way from Japan. It was his first vehicle.
An imported car?
Yes. And he came and asked us whether he could do car hire. And we told him we have clients who always want car hire.
Within the facility here?
Yes. And he gave us his brochure and everything. And then there's this guy who comes sleeping here, and he's all the way from, I think, must be Senegal, books into a room, and he says he's going to Talo Oil. Goes to Talo Oil.
With the car?
He rents this guy's car, and he says, I'm going for a week. So he pays him the whole week. The guy's excited, no documentation, no, how do you call it? No comprehensive insurance. It's the first deal. He's so happy. He's not asked people about the risks of this business. He's just given us a car, beautiful, nice premium. And the guy went Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday wasn't picking calls, Friday wasn't picking calls, Saturday. By the time the guy was coming to complain, he can't get this fellow. We brought in police, went to his room, found he had checked out, his bag was there with a pillow inside. He lost a premium worth 1.8 million. This guy went into shock. Went into real shock. Whether he had taken money from a bank to buy this, I don't know. It was his first business. He hadn't sat down to discuss what are the risks and how do I mitigate against these risks. He was just excited. And this is what I like to tell, people who are listening to me, that when you get into business, as much as you may be caught up with the excitement of success, sit down and process the opportunities that may come to bring failure. They do. And if you don't process that, your life is going to get very devastating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you don't process?
You need to process that. Make sure that I've told you, when, business is like a journey to war. Any army going to war, it's either I'll come back. You go back to your family and tell them, gentlemen, I'm going to fight. I'm going to represent Kenya in a war. So you tell your family, neza enda nisirudi. So you've processed that it can happen. And I think we need, as business people, to process that. That is what defines a business person. I meet guys who have gone to business and they went there once and they had a failure, a small failure, and they said, biashara hapana. Sitawahi rudi huko tena, sitaki hiyo kitu. You get me? Some of us have failed several times. I failed in politics and I picked up myself. And moved on.
Would you say that business is a profession of failures? In the sense that it's a profession, it's a vocation for people who have the muscle to cushion themselves from the shocks of failure. Would you say that business is such an environment? I think I've had discussions with many people who are very comfortable in employment, with nothing else.
Because they can't handle failure.
Nothing else. So would you say that business is kind of a reserve for people who have a thick skin? People will fail today and tomorrow they are at it again.
Absolutely. I would be shocked to find a guy going into business who thinks that he would do it, he will hit it and get it. Some of the successful businessmen, I've told you, and I said this in the beginning, are people who have failed several times. What are you looking for? When you go hunting, you're fighting in the forest. You get all kinds of lions, all kinds of animals, all kinds of cats. They can either finish you or you finish them. A businessman is a hunter. I've gone to look for meat. I've gone to a forest. There are all kinds of animals, including reptiles. And that is why I would sit in my office comfortably, because I can't process that kind of war and say, mimi siwezi ingia biashara. But if you're a businessman, you're getting into war. Anything can happen. You're a hunter. You're going to hunt for, some nice gazelle. But in the midst of that forest, there are all kinds of
Predators.
Predators. They can mess you up. Do you have the courage? If you have the courage to go and hunt for that gazelle in the midst of predators, you're a businessman. You're a businessman. Right now, my brother, we are living in times where the conversation is about, I'm either closing my business, I'm either shutting down, I'm either cutting down, I'm either going to, that's the conversation. Oh, chumi ni mbaya. That's the conversation.
Business is slow. I think that is the commonest.
It's horrible. But remember, I've told people, we live in different paradigms. I struggle sometimes, but sometimes I go to the bank and I'm trying to withdraw some small amount of money I have. Next to me, going to the teller is a guy coming with a huge amount of money to bank. And you ask yourself, Lord, is it only me, or, what kind of business is this guy doing? You realize, my friend, you may complain and complain alone. Do you get me? Mm. Business is like sailing in the sea. There are rough waves. Do you get me? Rough waves. Sometimes the waves can be horrible, but the sailor has to know how to navigate the ship to make sure it doesn't capsize. That's business. Right now, we are in a horrible time. Horrible time. It is a time of retreat. It's a time where we get back to think, how do I re-energize and relaunch? This is that season. Otherwise, you lose out close shop, and go home. But the courageous will be there. They say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. We went through COVID. We never shut. We've gone through all kinds of turmoil. We've never shut. And by the way, whatever we are facing right now is not peculiar. There are guys in 1988 thought they were close. They never shut. They grew instead. People are saying, oh, uchumi ni mbaya. Somebody in 1989 was complaining economy is bad. We need to press on. And I've said when it gets to a point like this, sometimes when we can't, I think it's time to retreat, re-energize, and then relaunch. That's the strategy. But there is no room for closing. You retreat, re-energize, relaunch. You can relaunch something different, but relaunch. But coming out of the business environment for a businessman is not an excuse at all. If I'm running a school bus and my school fails, I can change that school bus into a matatu. That's a businessman.
So amidst the failure, that is what you would say is the strategy to deal with it.
Absolutely.
You retreat, rethink, re-energize, and then relaunch. Mm-hmm.
That's the strategy. That's the strategy. Anytime you have a failure or you've seen a failure, retreat. You get me? Re-energize, re-strategize, and relaunch. That has always been my strategy. But you never give up. No businessman gives up. No. You shut this door, you open another door, because you have to retreat, re-strategize, re-energize, and finally relaunch. I can relaunch something totally different. That's the spirit of a businessman. The spirit of a businessman doesn't die. It doesn't die. A businessman, as I said, is a hunter. A businessman is a sailor who sails in deep waters. A businessman is a guy who goes for war. That's a businessman. And in all this, whether you're a hunter, whether you're a sailor, whether you're a person who goes for war, you're a person who would definitely meet risks. But we never give up.
Now, if I was to come directly to your experiences,
yes,
in many platforms that we've shared
yes,
in the past, you've confidently said that you've tried all manner of businesses.
yes, I have.
And failed.
I have tried businesses, I've succeeded. I've tried businesses, I've failed.
Are there examples that you can give of some of them that resulted into failure?
When I started business, my main phase of business when I began business was computer training. I used to train computer training in 1993, 94, 95. That was my main phase of business. And I made good money. My first million was made from computer training. I made fairly good money those early years. And then I went into the in thing was buying vehicles and selling. That time it was either Dubai and Japan. And so I got into, I had this money, this million shillings. I had balances of, millions in the bank. And I decided to go and invest in vehicles. And I opened a separate office for selling vehicles.
From the sales of computers?
Yes. Yes, I was still running my training, but I opened car sales, selling vehicles. I didn't have a yard, but I would bring and put my vehicles in different yards and sell. And I lost 3 vehicles one day. All stolen.
From the yards?
Yes. or stolen. It was very devastating. I had to shut down that business. It was a total failure. It was very painful. Money lost, opportunities lost. My life was at risk. I was going to be killed. I stopped that business. That was the first main business that I failed terribly. The cartels in Nairobi would not allow me. They wouldn't. I have run other businesses that have invested huge amount of money and failed, including a media,
CMTV.
CMTV, where I put in quite a bit of money and it just flopped. Totally flopped. And so the other businesses are small, but I know that I did vehicles. I went down very badly. I got into CMTV, went down very badly. You get me? I opened an insurance company, an insurance agency.
Which year?
It was 95, 96.
Okay. These millions might have been.
It just didn't move.
You must have had a lot of money.
Yes, I made, in that time, I made good money. I didn't handle it properly. Maybe another conversation would be in future is how do you as a young businessman, when sometimes money flows very quickly, how do you manage and invest that amount of money so that you can mitigate risk for the future?
That's actually a question that I asked you just a few minutes ago. Because I asked you, if I had $1 million today, what do I need to do to minimize my chances of failure? Because the $1 million that I gave an example of might actually be 100 million. We have people who just land, people just get money. And there's a conversation I was party to of farmers, dairy farmers, somewhere in a forum. And one of the successful dairy farmers said that the guys who are bringing the money from Australia and coming to invest in exotic breeds of livestock will fail terribly. The best way to succeed in dairy farming is to start with one cow. Understand how that cow operates, understand how to feed it, understand how to, manage that one cow, and then go into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And he was making an example of a guy who had put up a huge dairy plant somewhere with money he got from, I don't know where he was working from. And that business was at the brink of collapse. All the cows had died. So the guy was struggling to do away with the assets he had acquired and put up the dairy. So that question I had actually asked you, if I had 1 million or 10 million shillings, what do I need to do to minimize?
I think you've just answered it, with the cow business. And that's exactly how I put it. I said, we need to invest progressively. You give me 1 million shillings, whether it's 100 million or wherever, then to mitigate risks, I need to progressively invest. I don't just put all the money. Like, for example,
if you are to put it into perspective using your insurance business, how did you mess it up?
I have told you that I did not, when I made money and it was good money, I did not sit down to discuss risk. It was, I'm in love. This is good business. I get into it. I haven't been able to discuss the systems and the processes of that business. I just put in money and I failed. It's like this guy bringing in exotic cows here and, you hit them here in numbers and fail. If I went in progressively, maybe get somebody to talk to, get somebody to learn. Don't open a huge, office and have secretaries. You call it an insurance company. build progressively. Get to understand the art of, how is that business run, I would have done very well. And you can imagine an insurance agency in 1994, 95. Where would I have been today? Maybe one of the biggest insurance companies in the country. I went into it and I never, bothered to ask. I just got into it, and that's why I failed. I think the lessons that we should be able to bring out to whoever is listening to us, my brother, is don't just be in love. Passion is good, very good. Drive is very good. But sometimes passion and drive can blind you. How can it blind you? It blinds you on the bumps and failures that may come your way. And so you should be sober enough when you're so passionate about something. You should be sober enough when you have excessive inner drive to take time and listen. That's where the problem is always, that's where the problem always is. Because when you're so passionate, you're like a bull that is on heat. You can't stop it. You should be careful enough to, despite the passion, despite the drive, be careful enough to sit down and ask questions and listen. Talk to the business gurus who may have gone ahead of you. Talk to professionals who may understand the market a little bit more better than you. Don't just talk to guys who will prop you up. Talk to the devils. We never consult devils. You know who are devils? Somebody who will shut you down and tell you, my friend, sometimes it's important to listen to them because they could be having a point. They may be seeing things in a different perspective that you aren't seeing them. That helps you to mitigate the risks before you launch. You get me? I have done terrible mistakes. If I'm to begin a business today, I know how to begin a business. I know how to consult. I know how to measure my risks. I know. But previously, I've done great mistakes. And I have learned many ways of how never to start a business. What has helped me is that my risk factor, my strength, my muscles, even after failure, I have one strength that I recollect myself so fast. Wipe the shame and move on. That's one strength I've always had. I've failed several times, but it's never held me back. It's never held me back. I always collect myself and move forward.